My name is Lena. I don't know why I'm telling this story. Maybe because my heart feels too heavy tonight. Maybe because I'm afraid one day no one will remember me or him or what we had. So here I am telling you everything from the beginning. I work at a small bookstore in a town where nothing ever changes. Same streets, same people. Even the seasons feel the same year after year. People come in, buy books, leave. No one really talks. No one really stays.
And me?
I spend my days arranging shelves, dusting covers, watching lives pass by through the shop's glass door. Sometimes I wonder if anyone even notices me, or if I'm just part of the furniture. At night, I go back to my tiny apartment above the shop. Peeling walls, a bed by the window, the kind of place where the silence feels louder than your own thoughts. I make tea.
I read.
I stare at the ceiling. And sometimes I imagine what it would be like to have someone waiting for me. Someone who cared if I came home late. Someone who loved me. It's funny.
You can live years like this.
Invisible, unnoticed, until one day someone walks in and changes everything. It was a rainy Tuesday. I was arranging a stack of old novels when the doorbell rang. Ding. I looked up, and there he was, a stranger, standing in the doorway, shaking off the rain from his jacket. He wasn't like most people who came here. He didn't rush. He didn't look around nervously. He just stood there for a moment, looking at the shelves like he had all the time in the world. "Can I help you?" I asked. My voice sounded softer than I meant it to. He smiled. Not a big smile. Just enough to make my heart feel something it hadn't felt in a long time. "I'm looking for something to read," he said. His voice was calm, warm, the kind you remember long after it's gone. He spent nearly an hour in the store, sometimes asking me about books, sometimes just reading the back covers quietly. I found myself watching him when he wasn't looking, the way he ran his fingers over the spines of books, like each one held a secret he wanted to know. Before leaving, he finally came to the counter. "Your favorite book," he said. "Recommend me one." I don't know why, but I smiled for real. Not the polite smile I gave customers every day. A real one. I handed him a copy of The Little Prince. "Why this one?" he asked. "Because," I said softly, "it teaches you that what's important can't be seen with the eyes." He looked at me for a long moment, and then he said, "I'll take it." He left that day, but something stayed behind. Something I couldn't name. Something that felt like the beginning of a story I didn't even know I was in. Ethan came back the next week. I don't know why, but my heart knew he would, like it had been waiting. He walked in the same way, quiet, calm, carrying the rain on his shoulders. I was behind the counter, pretending to arrange receipts, but really, I was watching the door. "Back again?" I asked, trying not to sound like my whole day had just lit up. He smiled. "That book you gave me," he said softly, I read it in one night. One night, I tried to hide my surprise. Most people take a week. It felt like someone wrote it for me, he said, and for a moment, he looked like he was somewhere far away. That day, he stayed longer. He didn't just buy a book. He asked me about my favorites, about what I read when it rained, about why I worked here. No one ever asked me things like that. People usually come, talk about discounts, complain about prices, leave. But he wanted to know me. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became part of my days. He came every Tuesday, sometimes Fridays too. Sometimes he bought books. Sometimes he just sat by the corner table, reading quietly while I worked. And slowly, the silence between us became comfortable. The kind of silence where you don't need words, where just knowing the other person is there is enough. One evening, the store was empty except for him. The rain was pouring outside. I was making tea in the little back room when he appeared by the door. "Tea for two?" he asked, smiling softly. I laughed. "Do you always invite yourself like this?" "Only when it rains," he said. "Rain makes everything taste better." We sat on the floor behind the counter, 2 mugs of tea between us, the smell of old books around us. He told me about his favorite childhood book. I told him about how I used to read under the blanket with a flashlight when I was little. We laughed. Not the loud, empty kind of laugh people do to fill silence, but the kind that feels like it comes from somewhere deep, somewhere real. One day, he brought me a bookmark, simple, handmade, with a tiny quote written on it. "Some stories stay with us forever." I don't know why, but I held on to it like it was something precious. Maybe because it was the first time in a long time someone thought of me outside these walls. Weeks turned into months. He started walking me home sometimes. Not every day, just enough to make my heart want him to. One evening, as we reached my door, he said, "You know, this bookstore, it feels like it belongs to another time. Like the world outside doesn't exist here." "Maybe that's why I like it," I said softly. "The outside world has nothing for me." He looked at me for a long moment like he wanted to say something but didn't. I didn't realize it then, but I was falling. Not in the loud, dramatic way movies show you, but slowly, quietly, like rain soaking into the earth. And it felt inevitable. The thing about love is, sometimes it grows so quietly. You don't even notice until it's everywhere. That's how it was with Ethan. By the 4th month, he wasn't just a visitor at the bookstore. He was part of my world now. He would bring coffee sometimes or new music for me to listen to. He would sit on the floor between the shelves, reading out loud if I asked. He laughed easily but not too much. Smiled often, but sometimes his eyes looked like they carried storms I couldn't see. I should have noticed it sooner. But when you're happy, you don't look for cracks. You just hold on to the light. One evening, I found him sitting by the window table, staring at the rain. His book was open, but he wasn't reading. Lost in thought. I asked, putting a cup of tea in front of him. He smiled faintly, something like that. There was a heaviness in his voice, like a shadow at the edge of his words. That night, as I was closing the shop, he stayed behind to help. We were stacking books in silence when he suddenly said, "Do you ever feel like time is slipping away too fast?" I looked at him, surprised. "Sometimes," I said softly. "Why?" He didn't answer right away, just kept stacking books like he hadn't spoken at all. In the following days, I noticed things. The way he sometimes winced like he was in pain, but didn't want me to see. The way he checked his phone and grew quiet after reading some messages. The way he sometimes looked at me like he was memorizing my face. One rainy evening, I finally asked, "Ethan, are you okay?" He hesitated, then smiled.
"I'm fine, Lena."
Really? But his eyes, they were saying something else. Weeks passed, and the shadow around him grew heavier. One evening, he didn't come at all. The next day, when he finally walked in, he looked tired, palms pale, eyes darker than usual. "Are you sure you're okay?" I asked again, my voice shaking this time. He looked at me for a long moment like he was about to say something. But then he just smiled that quiet smile of his and said, "Don't worry about me." But I did. I couldn't help it, because by now he wasn't just someone who came for books and tea. He was the part of my days I didn't know how to live without. One night, I saw him outside the shop on the phone. His voice was low, but I caught pieces of it. Words like doctor, results, treatment. My heart sank. He didn't know I was listening, and I didn't ask. But that night, lying in my tiny apartment, I couldn't stop thinking. What was happening to him? What was he hiding? And why did it feel like something was about to break? The bookstore felt different that week. Like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. Ethan hadn't come for 3 days. 3 whole days. I kept telling myself he was busy, that maybe work kept him away. But my heart, it knew better. On the 4th day, he finally walked in. But this wasn't the Ethan I knew. His face looked pale, tired, like someone had taken the light out of him. I rushed to him. "Ethan, what happened?" He gave me a small smile, the kind people give when they don't want to scare you. "I'm fine, Lena," he said softly. "Can we sit somewhere?" We sat at the corner table, and that's when he told me, not all at once, but slowly, like someone peeling bandages off a wound too deep to heal. "Lena," he began, his voice quiet, almost breaking, "I wasn't planning on telling you this, because I didn't want to ruin this." He gestured weakly between us. I couldn't speak. I just waited. "I'm sick," he said finally. His words felt like stones falling inside me. "I have something in my lungs. It's not good." He tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. The bookstore felt too quiet. Even the rain outside seemed to stop just to listen. I wanted to say something, anything, but my voice wouldn't come out. He kept talking. I found out months ago, before I met you. The doctors, they say it's spreading. I tried treatment, but
He stopped.
looked away. My hands were shaking. Why didn't you tell me? I finally whispered. Because, he said softly, I didn't want you to look at me the way everyone else does. Like I'm already half gone. Like I'm not me anymore. His eyes met mine then, and there was so much pain in them, I thought my heart would break right there. I didn't cry.
Not yet.
Instead, I held his hand across the table, and for a moment we just sat there. No words.
No noise.
Just the sound of two people trying not to fall apart. That night, after he left, I closed the bookstore early. I went home, sat on my bed, and finally let the tears come, because for the first time since I met him, I realized there was a clock above us.
And it was ticking too fast.
The next days were different. Ethan still came. We still talked, laughed, shared tea. But now there was this shadow between us. This unspoken truth that every moment might be one of the last. He started coughing more often. Sometimes he would pause mid-sentence, holding his chest like it hurt. And every time, I wanted to scream at the universe to stop. But all I could do was hold his hand and pretend I wasn't breaking inside. The first snow fell that week. I remember looking out of the bookstore window, watching the tiny white flakes cover the empty streets, and wondering how something so quiet
Could bring so much ache to my chest.
Because Ethan, he was getting weaker. He still came to the shop every evening, but now he walked slower. His hands shook sometimes when he held his cup of tea, and every time he smiled at me, I could see the weight behind it, the weight of someone pretending they weren't fading. One evening, he brought me a gift. It was a small notebook, its cover soft, worn out at the edges. I want you to write in this, he said, handing it to me. Write the things you feel, the things you can't say out loud. I tried to smile, but my throat was tight. Why, Ethan? I asked softly. He just shrugged. Because words, sometimes they're the only things that stay. That night after he left, I opened the notebook. On the very first page, he had written something. If someday I can't come here anymore, I want you to have this part of me. I broke down reading that. I cried until the pages blurred under my tears. The days grew colder. Ethan's visits grew shorter. Sometimes he would sit with me for hours, telling me about the books he loved, the places he wanted to see, the things he wished he had more time for. And every word felt like a goodbye wrapped in a story. One evening he didn't come. I waited, closed the shop late, but he didn't show up. The next morning, there was a letter at the door. From him. My hand shook as I opened it. Lena, if you're reading this, I'm in the hospital. Don't come if it's too hard for you. I just didn't want to disappear without telling you where I went. Thank you for giving me days that felt like life again.
Ethan.
I went. I could not go. He was lying on the hospital bed, paler than I'd ever seen him, tubes and wires around him, like chains holding him down. But when he saw me, he smiled. That same quiet smile, the one that first made me fall for him. We talked for hours. About nothing. About everything. At one point, he held my hand and whispered,
I'm sorry, Lena.
I shook my head, tears spilling. Don't be sorry. Please don't be sorry. But he just looked at me like he was already somewhere far away. A week later, on a cold December morning, Ethan was gone. The bookstore has been quiet since then, his chair by the window empty, the teacups untouched, the notebook still with me. I write in it every night, the things I never got to tell him, the things he never got to hear. And sometimes, when the snow falls just right, I imagine him walking in again, smiling that quiet smile, as if he never left.